everybody. Welcome back to another edition of The Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck. I'm along with Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and we are here at Daytona International Speedway a little bit later than we thought we might be. But hey, they got the race in. That's good news. And William Byron goes back-to-back, first back-to-back Daytona 500 winner since Denny Hamlin in 2019-2020. Despite it being a repeat winner, despite it being one of the top drivers in the series, somewhat of a surprise because he was running seventh on the backstretch of the last lap of overtime, the white flag. And then there was a wreck in front of him. The six cars in front of him disappeared. Byron drove through it, and he is the back-to-back winner. So just one of those Daytona deals, as we've said before, I guess. But I guess, Jordan, first of all, what do you make of the race that we just saw?
It was lots of stories. It was interesting, entertaining, because there were a lot of twists and turns. At one point, it felt like this was Joey Logano's race to lose, and he kind of lost it. And then it felt for a really long stretch that it was going to come down to like Ryan Blaney and Bubba Wallace, two best friends who were kind of dueling there. And then that didn't materialize. And then it felt like this was going to be a Team Penske win of some sort, whether that was Austin Cindric or Ryan Blaney. And it really felt like they were so well positioned, running 1-2. And Blaney seemed, I don't say content, but seemed very okay with kind of just working as Cindric's wingman for that moment and running it down until the single digit laps and then sorting it out then. And that was kind of their strategy at the end of stage two. And it works well that way. And then, well, it went to hell in a handbasket. Blaney gets clipped from behind, which is a wild accident. He ends up crashing out, basically. And then it's kind of a free-for-all from there. And that's what we saw happen. And it felt like then when Hamlin takes control of this race, you're looking at the guys around him, and you're like, you got Cole Custer, you got Austin Dillons, you got, Corey LaJoie. You got a lot of guys who don't have a ton of experience there, a lot of guys who are really desperate to win. And it comes to know-how and experience. Denny Hamlin had them all matched, and yet he doesn't win the race. And this isn't a slight on Byron, who had a really good car for the most part today and ran in the top 10 for most of the race. But he was seventh on the last lap, and it wasn't like he made this charge to front where he just avoided everybody and got through it.
Yeah, for me, it felt like almost the typical Daytona race. I mean, this is what it is, right? Like, you see these fast cars dominate, and you say, wow, this guy could really, look at the moves he can make. He's unbelievable. This is going to be a great, the Penske cars or whoever. And then one by one, they all get eliminated from either one big crash or multiple big crashes. And you're sort of left with like, okay, who's left? Well, they're pretty good. Maybe they're going to win it. Oh, look, they're putting themselves in position. Then they get wrecked. And then you just sort of have this like chaotic finish at the end. And obviously a lot of the race is fuel savings and fuel, that they race 3x3, and then the crew chiefs all tell them on the radios, okay, you guys can go now. And they race really hard. And honestly, like, I think I was talking to our friend Danielle Trotta from Sirius out in the garage, and we're just standing with all these mangled cars, and we're just like trying to digest what just happened. And she was like, I just think these drivers just see red, like they just, but
that was what Cole Custer said. That is literally what Cole Custer said when I talked to him in the garage.
But so it's like, I was standing there thinking, why do they all lose their minds toward the end of these races? And it just occurred to me, right? Because I just been talking to Riley Herbst a few minutes earlier, and he had said, why don't they just make this race 65 laps? And because that's all we really race, because the whole time the crew chief's telling me, go 60% throttle, go whatever throttle. And he says, and I can see it on my dashboard. It says exactly what amount of throttle I'm running. And I go right to that number. And then they say, okay, go ahead and race hard. I wonder if like the holding these guys back for so much of the race and part of the strategy of it, and then saying, release the hounds, like they all just go, whoa! You know what I mean?
I get it. But to be honest with you, there have been wrecks at the beginning of these races too, from guys doing different things. And I think it's just the nature of super speedway racing. And at the end, you're less inclined to give a guy a break and give him a spot because you may not get it back. And I think in this situation with Cole Custer, he said, listen, this is the final lap of the Daytona 500. Yeah, maybe it would have been better to wait until the last two corners, and that's when you really make a move. But I had an opportunity. I felt like I had the momentum, and I have to go for it. And if I don't, I may not have that chance again. And so that's the situation.
That's what Cole Custer said?
Yeah, that's what Cole Custer said. And so he's got to go for it. And Denny Hamlin said, listen, the idea, in theory, you should wait until the last two corners to make your move. But he goes, I don't fault Cole either, because he's got to run. He's going for a win, and the opportunity to win a race is before you. And this is the Daytona 500 and everything that goes along with it, playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's hard to say to yourself, hey, I'm going to scale back. And I honestly think that applies to the Ricky Stenhouse-Joey Logano crash in that instance, where Ricky is like, listen, if Logano gets in front of me here, he's got the car. I'm going to have a really, really hard time passing him potentially. It's better to play defense and try to keep him behind me. Unfortunately, the defense ended up costing them both. But I think that is why you see these accidents.
I mean, in Cole Custer's case, let's be honest. I mean, it seemed like from what I saw, he caused both of the last two big wrecks. He caused the one that sent it into overtime when he spun Bell. And then wasn't it him that triggered the last one with Denny? I mean, I know Briscoe was in there as well, but I mean, Cole Custer is obviously back in the Cup Series full-time this year. You know, as you said, he feels like he has to go for it. But also, you know, I don't know, like it seemed like he might have been a little bit over-aggressive. No?
I mean, it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I also, when you're sitting second and you've got a run on the leader and you've got somebody pushing you, it's hard not to think. And I said to him, do you just see red there? Do you just have to go for it? He's like, yeah. Like, it's really hard to tell yourself back down when you've got to run. I mean, I guess if you're going to lose this race, I'd rather lose it by being too aggressive than too conservative. And so it's easy to Monday morning quarterback it. But again, if you're in that
situation, that is what happens.
That's the beauty of the show, Jeff.
No. I'm not talking about the Monday morning quarterback part. You're saying you'd rather lose this race by being aggressive than conservative. I mean, pretty much everybody that was aggressive ends up losing.
Sure.
And the guy that was, I think he said he was having fuel mileage issues, which is why he was sort of not up front most of the night. The guy that was just in the middle of it sails through, and all the people that were the fastest and most aggressive, they wrecked themselves out. So, I mean, I don't know. Does it even pay off to make those moves? Because here's the thing, these races never finish under green. There's always going to be some wreck. It's almost like if you're at the front, I mean, there's obviously no safe place to be, because Christopher Bell was on the outside, you know, fighting for the lead when he got wrecked. And then Denny got wrecked and Cindric got wrecked, and they were 1-2 at the time, basically, right? On the last lap or something. So I mean, I'm not saying I even know what the right thing to do is, but it just feels like remember there used to be sort of like this art to it. Like, was it this race 5 years ago when Denny let a couple cars go by him and then backed up?
It was 2020. It was with Blaney and Newman, and Blaney got a run off of him off two, and Blaney and Hamlin in his head with his spotter Chris Lambert, who's one of the best in super speedways. They'd gone over this scenario, and for them, their experience kicked in, and they everything slowed down for them. And Denny's like, I'm not going to panic here. I'm not going to do anything desperate. I know I'm going to have one more opportunity to get him back through the final corners if I have to recalibrate. And that's essentially what he did. And then
he let them go by, and he got somebody on his back bumper, and then he got a push, right?
Yep.
So like that's what I'm saying about now. Everybody at the end of these races is just like everybody's pushing. I mean, we just sat here last time we talked to a lot of you on media day for 6.5 hours, and I kept asking these guys, hey, 7 straight Daytona 500s have ended, you know, either in overtime or under caution or both. And what are the chances that this one is just clean and green regulation? And they were all saying absolutely not, because these cars can't take pushes. They're unstable, and everybody's just pushing as hard as they can at the end. But isn't it the drivers that are the ones doing that?
Sure. But if you're Cole Custer, I'm not trying to be an apologist here, but you're on the white flag lap. If somebody behind you wrecks and you're second, your race is over.
I know. No, I get that.
So I get
to the front. I get that.
So I mean, did he cause the wreck? Probably. I have to go back and see the replay again. But I'm not going to, like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. Like, I get it. It makes sense why you would do that in that situation. Because again, if you don't make that opportunity when you've got the momentum and the opportunity and you fall back, something happens behind you, you finish second, and you're kicking yourself going, damn it, why didn't I go for it?
Look, I mean, again, this is what you talked about is hindsight and all that stuff, right? But you had the incident with 15 to go, where Logano tries to make the third lane. Stenhouse comes down to block. That's who's at fault there. I don't know. I mean, it felt like Logano kind of got caught up in no man's land at that point. Stenhouse's block was a little bit late. I don't know that I fault him for that. I mean, he's trying to block the line, but either way, both those guys are like, we have to have this at this moment. It was still 15 to go, and then they both wreck out. So that ruined their nights, that ruined their chances by that move. It was over aggressive, right? Then you have, I mean, again, you could go to all these wrecks at the end, and you're just like, Custer on Bell. I mean, if you just wait a little bit longer, I mean, so I get what you're saying about you got to try to be out front, and maybe these guys feel like, hey, if I don't do it to somebody, and I'm not the one pushing, somebody's going to do it to me, and so I'm just doing it. But these races just continually end up the same way, and I mean it's kind of fine because this is just what we expect at this point. I don't think we expect anything different at all. I'm not like this was a bad race, because this is like every super speedway race now to me, right? Like this is just what it is. So, but I don't know that there's anything that changes that at this point. What can you do to change that?
I think this is the nature of super speedway racing. This is just how it is, and I don't see a fix for it. And you're going to be aggressive because you have to be. You hear drivers say it's harder to make moves sometimes. Sometimes it's harder to get runs, and when the fuel saving mode kicks in and they're running 2-3 wide across the track, and you're kind of stuck, and your crew chief's hollering at you to save gas, you're in a spot where what do? So it's hard, because when you have opportunities to make a move, it's like, I got to take the spot. I have to do it now, because I just may not get an opportunity to do it again.
Well, I mean, to me, I let me say this. I know that a lot of people are going to say, again, man, I hate the fuel saving stuff, blah, blah. I've actually come around on that quite a bit. To me, the alternative to that, there's got to be a part of the race where you log laps. Everybody's now figured out that you want to take as little fuel as possible so you can get at your track position, so you can get up there, right? And yes, it's kind of weird because they're all running half throttle or whatever, and they're all in a 3-wide pack, and they're burning laps, and you kind of have a part where nothing's happening until they get to the pit stop, or they get clear enough that their crew chiefs tell them they can all race. But that is strategy, right? That is, I would rather have, because that's essentially strategy. I would rather have them doing that than running single file train against the wall like they used to for 50 laps, and then still all wrecking at the end.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so, I mean, every race has moments where drivers I don't want to say back off, but they kind of play the long game, if you will. And they're like, now we're just going to kind of get to a point where we're going to settle in here. And you see that all the time. You see whether it's a 1.5-mile racetrack or super speedway, that's just part of it. And you're right. Like, I mean, we, for so long in super speedways, they would just fan out and they all ride for a while. And it's like, we have this image of like, oh man, that was back in the day. They did this and that. Like there were some of those races, but there's a lot of races too, where they would just ride and be smart until the last, few laps. And then it would go haywire. This is just how super speedway racing is. Like, this is the era that we're in. And I don't mind the fuel mileage thing because, like your point, it's part of the strategy. I really don't mind. I like it. I like seeing what innovative ways, guys are going to break out iPads on pit road to try to save a millisecond. It's fascinating to me. And I like the team element. I like when you go back to the spring race at Talladega last year, and the Toyotas had a plan on how they were going to all, do it. And then their plan went haywire because they ended up wrecking in turn 3. And then the Toyota ends up winning the race because the Fords take each other out. Like, I like this element. I mean, the only way I feel like you could fix it, or there's a couple ways. One, maybe you play with the stages and try to tweak them a little bit and try to eliminate that. But I don't know how you can. I don't know if you can do that. Two, and I've said this before, and we tried it on road courses, get rid of stage brakes. Because if you get rid of stage brakes, that's going to fix some of this too. But
yeah, because you're not racing to a certain point. And
but
right.
That's I would love if they did that. I would expect, on super speedways and road courses and like in Indy or Pocono, but that's probably not going to happen.
Let me say this though. I don't think NASCAR has any incentive to get rid of this type of fuel savings racing. And here's why. Think this is the race, for instance, and as are all super speedway races. What it looks good.
It looks. If you were a casual,
this is the casual fans race.
Think about this race. Think about this race tonight. It's 7, 8 o'clock prime time on the East Coast. People are watching this. You get a lot of casual viewers theoretically, and they're flipping and they're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna check out the Daytona 500. It's a Daytona 500," and they're like, "Whoa, these guys are running 3 wide at 190 miles." They don't know.
Exactly. Honestly, everybody listening to this podcast or watching our live stream knows.
We know.
But the casuals don't know.
No.
They're watching and they're like, whoa, my God.
That's cool. These guys are crazy.
Right.
And I will say this. You still had guys like a Logano.
You can still make mistakes.
But you can still not even make mistakes. You still had guys make moves. Like Logano.
I see.
Yeah, like you still had those guys make moves. Like I was fixated on watching Logano in stage 2 pick his way up. And it was great to watch. Same with Kyle Busch.
Well, if you want to use your fuel, you can.
Yeah.
You pay a penalty later,
for
perhaps,
sure.
But you have the option, right? I mean, I guess when they're 3 wide, you can't go anywhere.
No, but Logano did do a good job. But the optics are incredible.
Right.
Under the lights at Daytona, 3 wide.
3 wide, like almost the entire race.
You're like,
so why would NASCAR go, no, let's break this up and then we'll have the manufacturer groups all pit together.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
And,
because we want our signature race. These guys are on single file up against the wall and like, oh, no, they don't want that.
It's just the tough thing about it, again, this was the race that we all expected. It played out almost exactly how we could have said, right? Maybe even a few more wrecks than we would have thought. Because I would have thought it maybe all boiled into one big one at the end. But there was a few big ones. But the downside of it is this is being billed as the biggest event and the most prestigious race. And we spend all this time talking about the legacy and Daytona 500 winner and what it means. And ultimately, you're just like, I don't know. It's hard to assign like a bunch of meaning to it because all the drivers know it's not necessarily like the best driver of the race or the most, it really, I know you've said it's the most talented guys that put themselves up there, but time and again, you see that there's a lot of fortune involved here. You have to admit there's a lot of luck. What we just saw tonight.
But when has this, Byron did a good job of putting himself in position. This has kind of always been this way, though.
He put himself in position. How? He was in the middle of a pack running. I think he was 9th at the actual line.
He was 7th
to the white.
And he was 7th. Yeah.
7th on the backstretch. And people wrecked in front of him. And
he put himself in the spot, like if something
goes. What was the spot? If somebody had been 10th in the top 9 cars wrecked, that would have been the spot.
But he was in the mix. He was in the mix. Dude, what are you talking about? He was literally in the mix. Like, if he's running 20th.
What's the mix? Not wrecked yet?
Running as close to the front as you can. Like, that's the thing. Like, and so he ran up front all night. He did a good job. He had one of the fastest cars. He was one of the co-favorites going in. It was him and Wallace, Blaney, Logano. Like, there was a group of guys you look kind of.
Yeah, because he just won last year.
But he's really good in these races. Like, so it's not, you look at anything through the era of super speedway racing, ever since they put in restrictor plates, that's how it is. Dale Earnhardt has a flat tire in the last lap, or hits a seagull, or runs out again. Like, there's all of these things that have happened over the years that have impacted these races. Like, it's just part of it. All you can do is continually put yourself in the mix and hope that things break your way at the right time and you can take advantage of it.
I just disagree because I think by your definition, in the mix is just you missed the wrecks and you're still surviving when everybody else wrecks, and you get through and you're like, whoa, I did it. That's not even that much of that's luck to me. In some ways, right? Like, the best guy, like if you're going to go down the best super speedway racers, they almost all got wrecked tonight. Like the whole list.
Okay.
Right?
Byron's in the top 5 of super speedway racers.
He's in the top 5? Who's your top 5? Logano, Blaney, Hamlin.
Well, hang on here. Byron's won more super speedway races than Logano has. So, theoretically, he probably should be ahead of Logano. He's won more super speedway races
because Logano's always leading, and then somebody wrecks him.
Here's the thing about Logano.
He's leading the whole race.
No, here's I want to talk about Logano.
Okay.
This brings us to Logano.
Okay.
And this is kind of a Team Penske problem in general. Team Penske, again, had the fastest cars tonight. They do a great job of working together. What happened to them last fall at Talladega? They got overly aggressive. The thing with Logano, and it has bit him a few times, he is very aggressive, overly so sometimes, where he is a very aggressive pusher. He throws big blocks, and it puts him in spots where you're vulnerable. And you could even say tonight, Kyle Busch said it. Did he need to go 3 wide there in that second? You can pick it apart and say no, but you can also say yes. And so you go back and forth on this.
But you said earlier in the podcast that you have to be aggressive at these races. And I said, now you're saying he's too aggressive.
But there is a fine line between aggressive and overly aggressive, right? And you continually get into wrecks and you're causing wrecks. You probably need to reevaluate a little bit and say, what is going on here?
But not Cole Custer caused 2 of the wrecks.
I'm looking at the larger body of work here. I'm not disagreeing with you about Cole, but look at Logano though. He runs really well in these races, but he doesn't get the finishes because he continually gets in these things. And people tell you he pushes so hard, sometimes overly hard. Blaney said it on the radio tonight. He was upset with the 22.
Did he say FU 22?
So I got to go back and listen.
Okay.
I
didn't.
I heard it. I heard.
Okay.
I heard something said, and part of me says I'm pretty sure he said that, but I also did he say?
Chat, let us know because I'm sure Nicole. Nicole Chipman, who takes Blaney's radio chatter, she's in the chat right now. Nicole, let us know.
I'm pretty sure he did.
If he said "fu,"
but the part of me was did he say thank you sarcastically? And so I need to go back and listen.
Did he say thank you or "fu"?
I heard.
Nicole Chipman. Oh, she says Nicole, who keeps track. She said he absolutely did not say "fu" 22.
Okay,
she keeps track of it.
So that's why I thought he said thank you, sarcastically, as in oh, thank you 22.
Okay, Nicole. See, we have an authority here who
I can literally pop it up on my computer and tell you everything.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, to me, it's just I just don't know if you're going to complain about this type of racing and say, oh, they should do this. What do you do? What can you do? It's just how it's going to be.
It's always been. It's always been this way.
I don't know about always. I mean, there's been some banger in before the next gen car, that rules package where they had big runs. They'd go back to front. There was some pretty spectacular. There was some pretty good ones.
Sure, and there's also a lot of accidents too, and cars were getting airborne. It's this having big wrecks and guys, being overly aggressive. It's always been the nature of super speedways. This is how it's been largely since NASCAR went to restrictor plates.
Well, speaking of airborne wrecks, poor Ryan Preece, another one tonight, and he had some very pointed comments because this time he said that last time it felt like he was he was, he went through a huge barrel roll through the grass and he was all tough and he's still tough, but it seemed like he almost shrugged it off in a way this is just part of it. This time it felt like he said, when I went up in the air, I thought of and it got real quiet. I thought of my little girl. And he said, basically I was lucky to walk away and we're getting really close to somebody not walking away. And then he told the reporters there at the care center that this one hurt worse than the
worse.
Yeah, that's what he said according to social media. Yeah. So, and I don't know if that's the big impacts that he took, because he came down on the track hard, and Harvick has repeatedly said, it just shoots up through your spine when you have the impacts with this car. It's just so stiff. So, what is, I don't know, again, how you keep these cars on the ground, because that was a really bizarre one that we've never seen. That one, I first thought he was on Jones's hood.
It looked like it, didn't it? Yeah.
From the one angle.
It almost the 43 was pushing on the way.
Right. And I thought, that's how he got up airborne. But instead, he was doing a wheelie, and they showed the alternate angle. He was doing a wheelie and his car just kept getting more and more air on it. And then it went over, and then it went into the fence that way and almost up over the wall, over the safety barrier part. Nasty stuff. Obviously glad he's, not injured, but man, I kind of agree that, we all sort of take the safety part for granted sometimes because these guys keep getting in super vicious wrecks and walking away. But at some point, I mean, you just can't keep. And I'm not saying it's lucky because NASCAR and the R&D department and the safety department, I mean, they have done an incredible job making
continued effort.
But like just the angles that these guys hit at, and I mean, it wouldn't take much, I guess, and this is where the lucky part comes in, where like if another car had come along and hit him while he was already in the air, then he goes up into the actual fence, in the catch fence, it tears the car apart, shreds it. That's where somebody gets killed or something like that. So that's, I mean, dang. But yeah, so I don't know what the solution is now because they've tried to do more to keep these cars on the ground. We have another one blowing over that like this, and the way that it popped the wheelie this time was so strange. So
one thing I've heard, and I get really skeptical. I don't like talking about the technical stuff because it's over my head. Is the flat bottom, and just the wind catches it because it's flat, and it'll carry it. And especially tonight, if you look at it when the car got pointed upwards, like gets that air underneath it, and it's gone. I don't know what you can do, but what I will say is like the bar that Ryan, to NASCAR's credit, every time there's a big accident, they go back, they reevaluate, and they say, okay, we need to do X, Y, Z. And so it's always a continued evolution. And the bars they put in, after some of these recent crashes we've had, certainly helped Ryan Preece tonight. Look at the construction of the roof; like it was largely intact. That's a huge testament to this car.
Yeah, I mean, it's very odd to, like, let me say this. There's been times in the past when drivers would go airborne, and I'm like terrified to tweet anything at first because I think, man, if I tweet, oh, so-and-so got in a crash, and then it turns out like they were like really, really, really hurt or something, then it would look like I was being insensitive later because I was like tweeting race updates versus like somebody's life was at stake, right? It's sort of a weird feeling because like tonight I was just like live tweeting, what was happening. And I was like, he's going to get out, and there was a moment where like, oh, his window net was still up, and he did thankfully drop the window net. But you're just like, I don't know, you just get lured into this sense of safety where you just think, man, these guys are, so safe, but it is, we just cannot forget that it's that dangerous. We really can't.
And we don't. And it's tough because you keep seeing all of these horrific wrecks, cars getting airborne and flipping and upside, all of these things. And the drivers largely walk away. We haven't, thankfully, had a fatality in this sport in a long, long time. And it's just, you almost like expect it at this point, which, I guess is one thing is a credit to the car. You're like, these guys are going to be okay. But it's still, it's a really scary thing. And that's where I struggle with super speedway racing is because I really enjoy it. I think it's fun to watch. I think it's really a smart strategy game and this chess thing of how to put yourself in position and when to make moves. But then the other side of that is, man, these wrecks are bad. Whether it's Preece's crashes, we've seen Michael McDowell's couple crashes, Daytona last year, Talladega last year. Like, it's like it's hard to like, wow, this is fun to watch and really into it versus like, man, these guys are towing that line.
William Byron is a 2-time Daytona 500 winner, and is he the youngest to do so?
He is the youngest driver to multiple Daytona 500 wins, breaking the record held by Jeff Gordon, also in the number 24 car.
Oh, wow, he was younger than Gordon by 4 months.
And that is per Racing Insights. I just want to make sure I give the right credit.
So, Byron is only 27 years old, and he's already won 2 Daytona 500s.
Yep. Fifth driver to go back-to-back.
Yeah. What does this do for his career legacy, if anything?
I think it just continues what we've seen, which is, he's one of those guys. I think you put him, I don't know if he's quite in that Bell Larson category yet, but he's like right there almost of like every year you pencil him in for 3 wins minimum. Things go right, 4, 5, 6 wins, leads a bunch of laps. Like he's a perennial kind of contender. And I think this is just it. Like he's in the playoffs now, which is obviously a big deal. He's just one of those guys that have really kind of asserted themselves. And we saw him win 6 races 2 years ago. We saw him win 3 races last year. He's made back-to-back championship 4 bursts. Like, this is what William Byron does, especially at the beginning of the year too. Like, that's, if you look at his career, he tends to win early in the seasons and tends to rack them up. And this is another one. And to get 2 Daytona 500s, it's interesting because I really didn't really hit me until today. I was doing a lot of research, but Larson, Kyle Busch, Keselowski, Truex, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott. There's 6 former champions in today's race who've never won the Daytona 500. I don't know what you can make a case on what that means, but Byron's got 2 of them, and big drivers win big races and the big moments, and he's adding them up.
I mean, I think the point that Larson made to us on Media Day, though, when we were doing our live stream here, though, was a good point, because you had asked him about the crown jewels thing, and he said, something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, but like, it does more for your career to win it than like not winning it does. Like, essentially, like, I think this race is the point now where if you don't win it, people aren't going to be like, well, yeah, but he never won a Daytona 500, because what we talked about here, we kind of know what it means, right? Like, it's not the truest test of, driver talent traditionally. There's a lot of luck involved. You can have the fastest car, you can make all the right moves and still get wrecked. But if you do win it, it's prestigious enough still that you go Daytona 500 champion, put that on the resume. It's a crown jewel. So it's weird, but like, I don't think we're to the point where we're holding this against people if they don't win it. Cause you're going to say somebody had a great career, but they never won Daytona.
How many great drivers have not won this race truly, though? I mean, Tony Stewart obviously has won.
Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin.
Rusty Wallace, I will contend, his resume is a little thin.
What?
Yeah.
Does he have 50 wins or something?
How many crown jewel races he's won in his career?
Doesn't he have 50 Cup Series wins?
But a lot of them, most of them were on like 3 or 4 tracks. Most of them were short tracks, and he has. This is facts. He's got 1 crown jewel win to his credit. 1 crown jewel win.
Okay. So you're not even letting me put him in the conversation of great drivers that never won. He's a Hall of Famer.
He's great, but he's not Tony Stewart great.
Okay.
Well,
Truex never won this. He's going in the Hall of Fame.
Sure. I mean, and here's the thing, though, is you look at this. Like, Kyle's now 21. Is it 21 years now? Or he's 20.
This was 20.
Yeah, so 21. Do you count 2015?
No, because he wasn't in the race. He says, he attempted that, or he was
so
here, but no.
He's towards the latter part of his career. Like, he doesn't have a lot of runway left. Brad, we don't know what he is. Like, these guys are getting to a point, those 2 particularly, where there are opportunities to win this thing.
Yeah, but are you go back to your point. Are you trying to say that most great drivers win this race?
The majority, I mean, there is more great drivers that have won this race than not.
Well, sure. Okay. Yes.
I mean, so off of that, we have Tony Stewart, Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace.
Martin Truex Jr.
But who's not a great super speedway racer, though. He's never
How many times on this podcast hey, Martin Truex Jr. is underrated. He's actually a better super speedway racer than people think.
He is, but he also has never won a race on one of these tracks.
I get that.
And so Brad is surprising. Brad is a big omission on that. And that would be shocking if he didn't win. Kyle by his own admission has never been great at super speedway. He's had his moments. So it'll be interesting. I mean, maybe this is developing into a thing. I don't think it is, but we'll see.
Yeah, I definitely think you're on the wrong on this one when you're saying, well, all the great drivers win it, but Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson.
Well, Kyle Larson's got a long runway ahead of him. Let's pump the brakes. Same with Chase Elliott. Same with Ryan Blaney.
Well, we thought Kyle Busch had a long runway when even 10 years ago, we're like, he'll have more chances. We thought that about Tony Stewart. He'll for sure win one. Yeah. Remember all the duels that Tony won and all that stuff?
And the clashes, yeah.
And the Xfinity races here.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I don't know. I just I'm not buying this as the test of greatness. I'm just not.
I mean,
the test of greatness is like Brickyard 400s, Southern 500s, Coke 600s. This is not a test of greatness. Daytona 500. It's not.
Well, Tony never won the Southern 500.
What are you talking about here?
I'm just saying, if that's your barometer, he's never won the Southern 500. Did he win the Coke 600?
All right. Well, Tyler Reddick finished second in this race. I think he was kind of in the same situation as Byron, right? Like he must have been somewhere behind Byron. I didn't go back and see it. I mean, to be honest, we were recording this like before the winners press conference has even taken place. We just got off pit road in the garage and we're back here. So some of the stuff we haven't fully gotten to digest yet. But so he finished second. Guess who finishes third? Have you seen this?
Just really quick.
What?
Tony Stewart, 4 majors, right? We agree the 4 majors are Daytona, Darlington, Charlotte, Brickyard.
Okay.
Never won at Daytona. Never won the 600. Never won the Southern 500.
So you're now saying that Tony Stewart's not one of the greatest drivers? He's a 3-time champion.
No, he's one of the greatest drivers. I just think it's fascinating. It's a quirk.
Well, who qualifies for like greatness in your mind if you're not counting Tony Stewart?
Well, I mean, Jimmy Johnson's the greatest.
Okay, that's one person.
I mean,
there can be other greatest people like.
I mean, Richard Petty's record's a little thin too. If you want to talk about that.
Are you trying to like get yourself canceled?
So I can debate you about Richard Petty all day.
No, not me. It's not me. People listening to the show are gonna be like, this guy is.
It's true, Mike. So with the esteemed Mike Hembry, right? We both respect and we agree. Like he is of the belief that we both are the belief that Pearson is better than Richard Petty.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Petty's bad.
It's not. I didn't say he was bad.
Well, you're arguing that his resume is thin or something? He won 200 Cup races and 7 championships, and you're like, oh, I could make an argument for Richard Petty.
When you compete against a bunch of nobodies.
Oh, okay. You really need to. This is bad. This is really bad for you. You might want to call a PR rep or something to save you from this this fallout that's going to happen. My goodness.
Okay.
Jimmy Johnson finished third. Did you know that?
I did. That's incredible. I mean, he was
That's for sure his best finish by far since he stepped away from full-time racing, right? That's got to be his first top 10. And
a long time.
Yeah.
Jimmy Johnson. Interesting because Jimmy Johnson came back from an earlier crash, finished third. John Nemechek was in a crash and finished third. Ryan Blaney, by the way.
Legacy Motor Club gets 2 top 5s.
Two top 5. When's the last time that happened? Ryan Blaney was in a crash, rallies back and finishes 7th. Cindric got in that last crash. And how about Justin Allgaier, man?
Junior Motorsports first career top 10 and their first Cup start.
Yeah, how about that? That's what a wild day. Eric Jones finished 12th great day for Legacy.
So Legacy had 3 cars in the top 12.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty incredible.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, despite the Penske crashes, I mean, they still ended up finishing 7th and 8th. That's wild. It's always crazy with these super speedway races. Like you run out onto pit road or you run out into the garage and you kind of like, you just saw the finish. So you're kind of focused on that. And there's usually a big wreck. And then you get out and you look up at the scoring pile and you're like,
I had no idea who finished second. Like I legit, because there's just so much going on, like digesting the crash, like processing, running out there. And thank goodness, by the way, the pylon.
Right. Yeah.
No, and I'm not kidding when I say that, because like without that pylon, I would have been lost. So I'm looking at the pylon and it's like, is it a 48 or is it a 45? I just couldn't quite, you know what I'm saying? Well, I'm like, that's 48. They finished 1-2 again, second straight year.
Oh, I see.
No, it was Reddick. And then I'm like, 84. What?
Yeah, I know.
I saw this clear as day. I'm like, Jimmy finished third? Okay. All right.
So, now a lot of you, okay, so I saw the wreck happen and I heard Mike Joy later praise NASCAR for keeping the race green for the leaders to finish. Did they not call the caution at all until the leaders crossed the line? Is that right? Because
believe that is correct.
On the race report, there's the overtime caution, but they have a margin of victory here. Yeah. Is that right, chat? For those of you watching our stream, like there was no caution. They completely let it play out.
That is correct. I believe.
Yeah. Everybody's saying.
Yeah, because Denny talked about it afterwards.
Okay, so listen. All right. I guess I'll have to tune in for the new officiating podcast that NASCAR is doing with Mike Ford, Nate Ryan, and Amanda Ellis, because
they kept bringing.
What the hell? What the hell? Okay. Let's go back to earlier in Speed Weeks, right? So we start the Speed Weeks with the duels, and duel number 2, we got a green flag finish in duel number 1. Duel number 2, there's a caution, there's a wreck like coming out of turn 4, like halfway to the line, and they hit the button and call a caution like less than 100 yards before. Right. Mm-hmm. And then so Eric Jones thinks he won because he crossed the finish line first. They say, no, we actually threw the caution like right before he crossed the line. We did not let the leaders finish. And And then they got pushback on that, right? Because like I've been telling people, going around telling people, I was like, it's pointless for them to hit the button there because nobody's lifting. If the racetrack opened up and Satan came up from the depths of hell and was sitting there on the giant Satan with a pitchfork on the start finish line, all these drivers would still stay in the gas and drive straight into it. Nobody's lifting at the end of the Daytona 500 or any Daytona races, any super speed races. They're all just going for it. So I was like, why would they throw the caution? Okay. Truck race. They let it play out a little bit more because there was an initial wreck in the truck race. And then like the second wreck, then they said, okay, caution, and it finished under caution. Parker Kligerman was ahead. He ends up getting DQ'd. So then, you get to tonight, and again, I don't know if it was because NASCAR said, yeah, the way that we did these two, we didn't like that, or we didn't like how that played out. We need to try to get a green finish. We need to try not to let this happen under caution. But like, that was a pretty big wreck tonight and on the last lap. That was a pretty big wreck.
Here's the question though. Did any of the cars not make it back? Because the 11 made it back, the 41 made it back, and the 2 made it back.
I don't know. I haven't seen
it.
I haven't seen it.
I know, but I'm saying that though, and it's legit because if those guys are still moving and they're driving, NASCAR is going to see that and they're like, okay, these guys are okay. They're driving still.
Okay, but just a few nights ago at the same track in the duels, they immediately called it
because the guy hit the wall hard. And so
no, that was like right at the start finish line.
I know.
So nobody hit the wall hard
but they were stopped though. They hit the wall and they were stopped. These guys were able to keep moving and they had a body work. What are you rolling your eyes? This is exactly what happened. I'm not saying they're not consistent. I agree with you that they need to be consistent, but if the guys are rolling away, they've said this so many times. They know that the car's okay, but if the guy slams into the wall and other guys are piling in and the guy stopped, they're going to throw that caution.
Okay. Listen, I'll just say this. I like that they let it play out tonight. I like that they did that. I'm in favor of that because I don't think there's unless somebody is like in a real bad spot, on fire, airborne or something, this deploying the safety trucks a couple seconds. I don't know that it makes a difference. So by letting them race back, I think that's correct on the last lap. However, just the fact that they didn't do that in the same weekend on the same track, and then they change it, or it seems like they did a little bit different call. I just want to know as a viewer what's going to happen, like what to expect here. Okay, here comes caution, here comes whatever. And we know they're probably gonna let them race back here. They're gonna let them race back. That's great. I like that. But just is that going to be it going forward now, or next week's Atlanta?
Yeah, you want consistency, that for sure. It's tough, and Denny said it after the race. Is NASCAR gets a lot of static from people about how they did something. They're probably going to reevaluate and reverse course a little bit, and especially on a close call like the one you're referring to, where you're like, you probably could let that go. They might have been hesitant there too, and they do. So it's interesting, but I do think what happened the other night impacted what happened tonight, and that whether that's right or not is different. But you want, like your point, you want consistency. But you're never going to have, the circumstances are never going to be the ideal. I mean, it depends on the place of the track, it depends on the impact, it depends on if the guys are driving. There's so many different factors involved.
I mean, somebody in the chat here just said, and not to pick on you, but they just said, well, the wreck was behind the leaders. It wasn't behind the leaders. It was actually in front of the guy that ended up winning. It was the leaders that wrecked. So like, that's not the typical, like the reaction, I guess. Anyway, I'm not complaining about this one in particular because
we all want consistency on the finishes. I would love that too. And I would love to know what constitutes what, caused the caution. Like there was a part of me when Riley Herbst spun on the last lap there. I was like, oh man, they're not going to throw the caution, are they? Like,
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, I'm like, oh.
I mean, he went down into the grass and saved it.
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to see this again, because we've been talking about this all week, and I'm like, I don't want.
I ran into Riley in the garage afterwards, and we were talking about that last lap or whatever, because he gets shuffled out, and then he's last, and then everybody, because he had lined up right behind Denny, and he said, well, he had damage. He had some damage from earlier, and so whenever somebody would like dump a lot of air on him, he would slow down. But he was trying to stay tucked up behind Denny, and he was like fourth or something.
Yeah, the 3 Toyotas was he, Bell, and Hamlin were all lined up. And I was like, oh man, they're gonna roll to this.
So then he he gets shuffled out. They all wreck.
Yeah.
And then by the time he catches up, he just goes by everyone. He picks up like 20 spots or something.
It's quite the sequence there.
Where did he finish?
Hang on. Man.
He finished 17th.
Yeah.
But he was like, he picked up a bunch of spots because he repassed everybody. So anyway, let's see. Who else here do we want to talk about in the top 10? Just running down, for those of you who didn't see before it went off the air or anything. Byron, Reddick, Jimmy, Briscoe gets 4th from the pole.
Quiet night for him, though.
Yeah, that's true. Nemechek, Bowman, good start for him.
Really good, solid race, too. He was in the top 10.
He was up. He was going to
contend long, and he was kind of sneaky, putting himself in position there. And I was like, okay.
You've got Blaney, Cindric, Allgaier, and Busher. And then is there anybody else that's up there that was like a big surprise or anything? Not really. It doesn't seem like it.
Ty Dillon in 14th.
Oh yeah, great point.
Good speed weeks for Ty Dillon.
Ty Dillon,
like he almost won his duel. Like legit, if he would have fraction of a second more on that block attempt there from AJ Allmendinger, AJ might have pushed him to the lead and won that race.
Okay, without looking, did you already look who's the points leader? Don't look. Do you want to guess who it is? Because I would not have guessed this. I don't think.
I want to say Blaney.
Did you look?
No, but he won a stage tonight. He finished 7th in the race.
Okay, so you're right.
I mean, he finished. I think he finished in the points in the stage.
Ryan Blaney is the points leader by 6 points over Bowman, 7 points over Byron, and then Reddick, Cindric. Jimmy Johnson is 6th in points.
Jimmy Johnson going to come back around the full season.
Come back, Jimmy.
Just keep running it back, man.
Briscoe, Nemechek, Busher, Eric Jones.
That makes sense with Blaney. I
actually thought Bubba would have been up there because he had 10 stage points from his dual win, but he's all the way down in 29th. So where did he must have had a really bad finish. He got caught up in that one wreck. Yeah, he finished 29th and he's 29th in points.
Yeah, that's right. Blaney had a good finish in his duel too. So
yeah, there you go.
I don't know why you're so surprised.
Well, I guess I'm not paying attention. Ty Dillon, 15th in points.
Ty Dillon, I mean, again, good. I mean, for driver who's much maligned, all the reasons, like good race. Now keep that going. Now you're going to a track to Atlanta where you got a shot.
So somebody that unfortunately really, I think everybody was hoping to see have a good speed weeks perhaps, but really didn't. Elio Castroneves.
Man, that dude's like a ping pong ball.
Like
weekend.
Everything that
bounced everywhere.
Like how many wrecks was he in?
Oh my God! I mean, the ARCA race alone, he was like
two or three in the ARCA. Three in the ARCA race because he got wrecked at the end.
Yeah, 3 in the ARCA race.
He got destroyed by that dude who didn't seem to know that it was like the end of the race.
Yeah, which pretty much is the ARCA series.
But in the duel, wasn't in the duel where he wrecked and then kind of like saved it, but then went down on the apron and then wrecked himself into the wall.
Yep.
So that was like basically 2 wrecks in one.
Sure.
Then he wrecks again tonight. Just didn't even really get the full experience, right? What did he finish? He finished 39th. He made it 70 laps. Yeah, I mean, how would you feel if you're him and
frustrated?
Yeah.
Like he didn't really get the experience, but
he got some experience.
I guess
the experience he wanted.
Yeah. Welcome to Super Speedway racing.
Yeah.
It's tough. It would have been nice to see him get some laps. I would have liked to. Someone else made this point, and I wish I could credit them, but I would have liked to have seen him run. I wish he could have done the ARCA race first, and then run the duel. Just to you could have taken the experience from the ARCA race, and then he could have seen what he could have done in the duel instead of like the other way around.
I don't know. I don't know how much you can really learn from that ARCA
It's not.
race.
But it's not. I mean, it's just.
Did you see that ARCA race?
No. You're right. Yes, but it's just little bit of familiarity of navigating a draft and that kind of thing. Because as you watch the ARCA race, he worked his way back up there. He was running second in the latter stages, and just give him a little bit of experience, and maybe in these situations he would have been able to figure out how to manage it a little bit better.
Here's the good news, Jordan. This could be an ice cold take or a horrible hot take. I don't know how you want to phrase this. Atlanta's next week, and I think Atlanta is a better super speedway style track at this point than both Daytona and Talladega, because think about that Atlanta race last spring. Mm-hmm. That was it was a good finish.
Oh, it was a great
race.
But
from start to finish, it was
fantastic.
The whole thing was good. Then you had the 3-wide classic finish. So if you're not tired of super speedway racing yet, and Atlanta's coming up, I think it could actually be better. Hope it is.
I mean, I don't think it's a hot take. I mean, there's an argument to be made. I mean, the Atlanta races, since they've done the conversion, have been very entertaining.
Yeah.
And they typically haven't been marred by having these big ones, they've had multi-car wrecks, but it's like you don't have these giant wrecks repeatedly or that kind of, at least it doesn't feel like it. At least. So I get it.
Let's, we've gotten a lot of requests to not, when the good race polled, to not, show each other the answers or go up, try to price these right each other. So why don't we type it on our phone? Do you have like a notepad app on your horrible Android? Well, you're typing on your computer here, and I can see what you're typing.
You let me move my computer. Oh,
okay, so you're just going to type it into your calculator app?
I'm dealing with my parents with you.
Okay. Well, that's a compliment. I liked your mom last time I met her.
You would.
Anyway, so I'll type in my answer here, and then we can reveal them at the same time. First of all, before I type it in, my reasoning will be that it was sort of the standard super speedway race. I wish I had looked up the other Daytonas. That would help me a lot because it seems to be relatively consistent. But ultimately, I think people are going to be like, man, I think you'll have some people. First of all, super speedways never really get a great rating to begin with. Some people just don't like the wrecking anyway, or some people don't like the fuel mileage. Some people don't like whatever the package is for that given year. Some people don't like it. I think people are going to be like, oh, Byron, he just won last year and now he's 7th and he won this, all this kind of stuff. So I just don't think it's going to be super high. But again, I think it was fine. It was a normal super speedway race. There was nothing bad. I just think it was like the normal race. So, you're looking at the chat.
I'm just looking at the screen.
You're looking at the chat and seeing what people are writing in.
The camera's right here. The camera is right here.
You're looking at
the camera, which is right here.
People typing.
The camera is right here.
Type your thing in. This is an outrage.
I am looking at the camera. This is where the camera is.
This is an outrage. Okay, type your guess in so we can reveal it. Did you type it in?
No, not yet.
Okay, you're still looking at people's things.
I'm not. I'm literally looking at my computer. God,
okay.
I like dealing with my mom.
Okay. Did you?
Yeah, I don't. I'm gonna go back. I don't like this.
People are waiting to hear.
Okay.
What do you got?
68%.
68.5. 68. So there you go, you folks. Everybody wanted us to not be near us on our guesses, so we could not prices right each other and all that stuff. And we had the exact same guess anyway. The good thing I put 0.5 in there. What would we have done for a tie?
I don't know. I think you're gonna win. I think it's gonna. I was gonna get. 70.
I think it's gonna be lower.
70 was gonna. Oh really? 70 was gonna be my original guess.
I was gonna put 65.
Okay.
And then I decided,
I almost went 70.
Okay. Well, 68.5 for me. 68 for you.
The thing of it is you touched on it. I don't know. This was a fine race. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't. I don't know what. I guess you get a different winner, more, whatever. But
this met expectations because if you expected anything different, I don't know what you've been watching in the next gen super speedway.
And what we've heard a lot about this car in these on super speedways is you can't pass, and you saw passing tonight. You did. Logano and Busch both came from the back. You saw guys being able to make moves.
When they're 3 wide and they're all fuel saving, you're not passing.
No, sometimes you can't. But they were able to at times when to make moves. Like you can pass. The narrative that you can't pass.
Well, when they're some of them are fuel saving and you step on the gas and somebody's going 50% throttle and you go 100%.
But that's
pass. Of course,
that's racing, and like that's.
I think the problem that people feel like for the passing too is like when they go hard, when they go 100% and somebody pulls out of line, and if nobody goes with them, they drop anchor and go to the back. They feel like they can't. The drivers feel like they can't race as well as they used to with the old package, where they could slice and dice and drop to the back. Remember, drop to the back and come up through the field if they had a good car. Remember, you know what I'm talking about with the old package?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think that's what they're talking about. I think, but
you also have guys to be able to throw big blocks in that too, and then cause big wrecks. So I mean, it's
for sure there was definitely. I mean, I'm not saying there's no perfect super speedway package. I don't think. I mean, there really. I mean, really it's always a razor's edge, because what makes the super speedway racing great at times is also this razor thin close to making it a total disaster and cautions and whatever. So, yeah. And do you want to talk about anything else from any of the other races this weekend?
Jesse Love. I think he's young talent. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Austin Hill was going to win that thing too.
Yeah, I mean RCR in general, just when it comes to Xfinity race, RCR is just at another level. Yeah. Jesse Love is a really, really talented young driver. I think we saw it last year. I think he is really positioned to have a really big 2025 and put his name in conversation for some things.
People want us to talk about Cletus McFarland. Did you love his interview?
I have heard it. It was fine. You know, the screaming, what did he say? Screaming eagle or something, or
like a bald eagle. That's one of his catchphrases.
I have never watched one of his videos.
Like the sleeves cut off. That's all his brand's catchphrase kind of thing.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Anyway, I think that he would be. I mean, what was great about him was he obviously had his YouTube audience with him, and NASCAR let him do the in-car camera live streaming during the race, which was terrific. There was the clip, I don't know if you saw this, where I think it was like during a red flag or something, he starts talking to the camera about the wreck that he just missed. And he's so refreshing for, like that clip, the one Cletus clip, I saw it made it onto like Barstool Sports main account. And like that's the kind of thing where people like he had his base with him and he went mainstream. Now he's run ARCA, so could we see him in a bigger race? I mean, he's probably approved now, right?
You probably got to do a couple more just to kind of, maybe a truck race or something of that nature. But I would think that if it would make sense, right? If this is your goal and you want to get the attention, and honestly, it's good for NASCAR. I mean, the guy's got 1 million YouTube subscribers and he's willing to put in the time. Like this isn't like a situation like, oh, I want to run the Daytona 500 today. Like he's going to ARCA to run. Like good for him. Like, yeah, put him on that path. And if you can get him in the Daytona 500, great. Doesn't probably qualify for provisional, but
Yeah, well, actually, maybe. I mean, wouldn't you want him in your race? Now, that's somebody that you would want in your race.
Yeah.
Somebody that can make it, like a Truex or a Jimmy. You're talking about Cletus McFarland. That is who I'd use an OEP on, because he would add to if you're trying to get eyeballs, that's who I would use it on. That's exactly the type of person I would use it on. Right. Somebody to make sure that he's in. Like I'm not even kidding. 1 second. I would put him in over like 5 people that are being considered or something, that have been floated names for this kind of stuff. Because that is the non-traditional person from somewhere else that you could bring that in. You get that guy in your race, you get that guy promoting Daytona 500. You know how excited people would be about that?
I agree they'd be excited. I don't know if it'd be an either or. Like there's a lot of guys
Who's going to add more publicity to your race? Martin Truex Jr. or Cletus McFarland?
Oh, Cletus, for sure.
Okay. That's exactly what I'm saying. Even Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon or Cletus McFarland.
The goal is just to get more attention on your series.
That's what they made the provisional, right?
Yeah. What you want? Yeah, I don't like it. Just doesn't sit well with me though.
I don't like the rule, but I'm saying that you have the rule, you might as well use it for that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. If you're gonna have it,
I'm glad they.
It's for a celebrity.
I'm glad they worded it the way they did.
Okay.
Because I don't want to open up that. That is a Pandora's box I do not want to open.
Well, now you're going to have, I mean, Newgarden was here today. Scott Dixon was here.
Yeah.
Jimmy said he would have wanted to do the provisional if he knew about it. Truex said it on our podcast. It was a slap in the face to not be able to do it. Who knows? Elio, maybe he comes back. So now you're going to have all these people applying next year. NASCAR is absolutely going to have a meeting where they sit down and go through and decide. And you know what's great about it? We're all going to know who they decided because they're going to say so-and-so has a provisional, and we're going to see who else got entered in the race. And we're going to go, oh, NASCAR thought that person was more deserving than this person.
Cue the hot takes.
Oh my gosh, can you believe that?
Cue the hot takes.
Or it'll come out like somebody will say, I was going to do that race and I couldn't get the OEP, so I'm not going to do it anymore or something. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
they really put themselves in a box on this one. But it's in the charter, so it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you know about it. They're going to tweak it, it sounds like, to some degree. So let's see what the tweaks are before we all get up in arms. Castro Neves runs another NASCAR race. I would suspect it probably would be a road course. The Dixon thing, I talked to a coroner in the garage. Let me take that back. I talked to a team president in the garage who would be associated with Scott Dixon possibly doing this, and he was like, "No, we're not doing this." And so I'm not saying it won't happen. I mean, who knows? But we'll see. We'll see what happens. And if this becomes a thing, you know what this does? Like, in all seriousness, you end up getting a Dixon and a Jimmy and a Martin and whoever else decides to roll out here next year at Daytona. How great were the duels this year? How much attention do we pay for the duels? Did we pay attention to the duels this year? The television ratings for the duels were great. Like, getting these people in, and obviously the junior thing, and that, which was also part of it. Like, it's good. You want that competition. If it makes the duels even more cutthroat and more, last minute got to go for it, hell yeah, let's do it. That's good.
Anything else you want to talk about from this before we get into the winners press conference, which has already started now? I mean, unfortunately, the rain again. I mean, but that's at least they got it in. I just don't know what poor NASCAR can. I mean, there was plenty other nice days. I mean, it rained some days. It's warm some days.
It's bad luck. Good for them. They ran it. They ran it prime time. Good hours. I mean, so it worked out on Big Fox. I'm curious to see what the rating is.
Should help, right? But they had to go against that
SNL and the NBA All-Star game.
Oh.
So that's tough. But the prime time, I'm curious to see what this rating is. I'm glad they got the entire race in. I think if you're a casual fan, you tuned in, I think you were intrigued by this. So we'll see. I don't know what NASCAR could do. And people are going to sit there and run it earlier in the day. Just please stop.
We'll have plenty more coverage coming up on The Athletic tomorrow. I will have my what I'm hearing takeaways type thing. I'm sure you're going to write something off.
I have no idea what I'm going to write.
You'll write something great off this race. And my 12 questions this week will be with Chase Briscoe, who's always great with those. And then I will have Connor Zilich going into COTA, where he'll be making his Cup debut. So I recorded those this weekend. Excited to get those out for you guys. Thanks for supporting us here on Dirty Mo Media. Thanks for supporting us on The Athletic. Appreciate that. We're looking forward to a great season with you guys. Man, we've missed doing these weekly things, and it sure is great to be back with you doing these regularly again. I was sorry we didn't get to do a tweet up because of all the security stuff. By the way, next time, I'm not saying it was their fault at all, but next time you get to the track early.
Take the advice.
Take the advice.
Take the advice.
The security today was no joke.
Yeah.
I had to get out of my car. It wasn't just it's sometimes they run the mirrors under the car.
Yeah, you had to get out of your car.
I had to it was crossing. I've driven into Mexico before, and then you come back into the United States.
Yeah.
And they pull your car to the side and inspect it and go through with dogs. And
I wish they gave you a cavity search. That would have been hilarious.
Well, I had to go to the side and do a metal detector and wait in line at the metal detector, TSA at the airport, while they did my car. And then it was like you leave your car to go for a car wash, except it was for a security check. They're I'll just leave it here. And then I got back and all my bags had been gone through. My wires were all scattered around and all this stuff. my backpack. But like, yeah, and like it took me 40 minutes. So then, of course, I saw these poor people at the gate, like standing out there for like 2 hours. People were like falling out, like fainting and stuff, like seriously, like passing out. And like, even up to the rain delay, like, but I asked people how long they were standing in line. Some people said 2 hours, which is terrible. But I'm telling you, man, the security, like, if the president's going to keep coming to these races, they're taking this really crazy. So, yeah, like they're what?
You should take your own advice next time.
What?
Get here earlier.
I got here at 6:30.
And you had to get out of your car, and you had to do all of this stuff, right? Guess who got to drive in this morning? Literally, drive in, didn't get out of my car, didn't slow down, just threw up my thing, drove right in like I normally do.
You weren't going to where I was going. I was going under the grandstands. You were going to the infield.
Mm-hmm. So you should have got here earlier. You wouldn't have done all this probably.
I got here at 6:30 in the morning. What are you talking about?
I got here at 5:40. You get here earlier. You don't have to wait in all these lines probably.
Are you trying to like? You feel like you got beaten down so bad in this podcast, like so destroyed that you're trying to like get a cheap one on me before we
get destroyed at all. You want to debate NASCAR history? I will go head to head with you anytime. And I will.
What is relevant NASCAR history? I need all my Team Jeff people out there this week to like help me out because I feel like I'm being gaslit right now. I don't want to hear any Team Jordan this week because this is some crazy stuff we've heard on this podcast. Please tell me your team.
So Richard Petty is the greatest driver of all time?
I didn't say that. I think Jimmy is.
Okay. So
we got to get out of here. You have buried yourself. Okay. Everybody, we will be back with you after Atlanta. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you next time on the Teardowns. See you, everybody.